You may have played poker, but playing poker in Texas is a different animal. This is the Texas Poker Podcast with Tyler and Clint.
Hello, this is the Texas Poker Podcast. I'm Tyler. This is Clint.
What's up, y'all?
We are back with episode 66.
Episode 66. So not our busiest week playing poker, but we did get into one game where we were playing it together, a private 1-2 game, and it was a fairly interesting... I don't know if it's an interesting spot. It's definitely an interesting hand.
I mean, it's definitely interesting since we knew each other. If we didn't know each other, I don't think I would find it that interesting, but...
Good call. It's a... So it is literally the first hand we're dealt. We're shorthanded at a 1-2 game. I have pocket deuces. What do you have?
Queen 9 offsuit in the big blind.
Okay, and I am in the small. It's raised to 7. And I obviously call with pocket deuces.
I complete.
Okay, and the flop is Queen 9 deuce.
Yes, and you check, I checked the pre-flop raiser. He makes it, I believe it was 15.
That sounds right.
You call the 15.
I call the 15. Kind of not wanting to draw. I'm not really that scared of much here. I mean, I don't love Jack 10 or anything like that, but for the most part, I think there's a lot of random queens here where I basically have him drawing dead. So I don't really worry about raising here.
I do raise, though. I make it, I believe it was 50 to go.
You know, yours is almost the kind of the same as mine. Did you think of calling just to draw more in ever?
I thought about it, but I thought that guy, I put him on like ace, queen, king, queen, something kind of like that, and I thought he would call just based on when we had talked to him beforehand.
Yeah, he's not folding huge, big hands like that. So yours is probably the more correct way to go. So you make it 50. He ends up folding, correct?
Correct, and then you call.
I definitely make the call.
I thought he called at first, but I guess he probably didn't, right?
I don't remember him being part of the action on the turn.
Yeah, you're probably right. So I think he folds. The turn is an 8, which I was thinking that's not the best card, but...
Well, we are both thinking that. I mean, if there's, one card in the deck, or if there are two cards in the decks I didn't want to see, it's a king and an 8, because I'm beating basically everything. But what do you do here?
I believe I bet 65, almost same bet, but I mean, I bet that size also because of our stack sizes were pretty short.
Yeah, obviously, I think I only have like 100 here behind or something.
You bought in for 140, so...
Yeah, so I don't actually have less here.
Yeah. That's what I was...
So, I mean, at this point, I'm definitely not worried about Jack 10 to this degree. I mean, it's one combo that you could possibly have, but it's just going... at this stack sizes, it's going in the middle with a set every time. I go all in. You obviously snap call. Mm-hmm. And runs out with a clean. And finally, after a set over set, and you just making hand after hand against
no one's
my
even
coolers.
heard that story. We haven't even told that story on the podcast.
We definitely have told that story on the podcast. Right?
I don't think so.
Yeah, we definitely were doing a podcast when you went set over set on me.
No, we weren't doing the podcast then for sure.
Oh, God.
That's what I was saying earlier in the week, that we haven't even covered that hand when I set over set you at the old 52.
God, okay. We'll just run on it that this was a time where both me and Tyler were at the old 52, and we were both doing very well that night. Tyler's killing it. I have run my stack up from 300 to 650 or something, 700 or something
like 8. Yeah.
Yeah. We get in.
I had pocket 8s.
What I have?
Pocket 6s.
And then
the flop was 3, 6, 8 with a flush draw. It was playing 3 ways. This guy raised pretty big. I don't remember what he had. but me and you both called. We were playing 3-handed. That was the flop. 3, 6, 8. He bets like 200. I think I only called the 200. Then you went all in over the top. And then I was like, well, I have to call.
Yeah, that was... Yeah, I flopped the set. I went all in, and yeah, he ends up kind of tank folding.
He was angrily folding, too.
Yeah, and then you make the call. Because it was one of those that it was a draw-heavy board, and once it comes around to me, and there's that much money in the pot, because it was a pretty big pre-flop. I forget how, I mean... With what I had, it couldn't have been that big, but I think it was ended up like 30 or 40 to go.
Yeah, I think so.
And then now there's 200 and you're 200 along with 120 in the pot. And I'm just like, I mean, it was one of those, if someone's drawing, they're going to have to pay for it because it's a shitload of draws. And then, yeah, obviously you have the bigger set.
I actually hit turn quads.
It might have been, yeah, you did turn quads to give me literally no outs. I think it might have been one of the biggest hands I ever lost at that point. I don't remember ever losing like an $850 pot, $900 pot. I mean, I've lost that much in a game, but never in one pot.
Yeah, I say the pot was way bigger than that, but that's how much you lost in the hand.
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah, it was that much, and so. This is how shitty this is. We're going to go grab dinner at breakfast afterwards. It's like 1 or 2 in the morning.
I thought we carpooled.
So we go over there, and I'm going out, and what was it? Okay, so I'm waiting for Tyler because he's like, well, I need to wait a little bit before I rack up my chips. I'm like. The only person that you got money from is sitting right here at this table is not playing the game. I don't think anybody cares. So finally he comes. We're going to go grab breakfast and on there. Obviously he's in a great mood. I'm not in the best of moods. We go to the car, but he stops. And just like, oh yeah, we did carpool. Because I was like, yeah. I'm not bringing the goddamn car to you. I mean, he stops like I'm about to valet the car to him. I'm like, you just stacked me for $850. I'm not bringing the car around so you don't have to walk.
Right, because it was freezing that day.
Yeah, but I think you just didn't remember where we parked.
Well, no, I thought I drove myself, and I was parking the other side of the parking lot. So I was like, I'm not going to walk across the parking lot to talk to you about this hand. I have to just walk clear across the other way.
Oh, and then we end up going to breakfast at IHOP. I get like a $14 plate. Tyler's like, don't worry, I'll cover it. I'm like, no shit, you're covering it. You just got $900 of my dollars. Damn right you're covering it. So, yeah, it was so that was interesting. So finally, I get a little bit of revenge and get the set versus 2 pair, which was much needed, and our heads up play together.
Yeah, so I left after that.
Yeah, Tyler, it was a short night for him at the poker table. I had one. Tell me what you think about this hand, because this might be considered an angle by me.
Great. Okay, go ahead.
I end up with pocket kings. It's raised to 13 in this 1-2 game. There's a call. I go to 3-bet, obviously, with pocket kings. But before I get my chips out there, somebody raises. The guy behind me raises. So I'm like, well, I call, I guess. I just call the 13 if I know this guy's going to raise. And sure enough, he raises to like, I don't know if it's 13. No, it couldn't have been. No, I guess it was just limped around to me, and I was going to raise. Yeah, because that's the only way this would have worked. It's limped around to me. I'm going to raise, but before I do it, the guy to my left, he puts money out for a raise. So I just make the call of the limp. He raises. It goes call, and then I make it 50. What do you think about this play?
I mean, I'm fine with it.
I was like, I don't think it is, because I mean, it's one of those that, I mean, if someone acts out a turn, I mean, that's on them. I mean, if they're going to give you added information, that's kind of on their deal. But you're okay with just limping there, knowing it's going to be a raise, and then just you 3-betting it.
I mean, I've done so much as to where I've been cutting out raising chips, and somebody raises behind me, so I just fold.
No. So I make it 50. He calls, another guy folds, and then another guy calls.
So at these stack sizes at this, because this 1-2 game wasn't particularly deep. So, I mean, you're basically going in on all flops, right?
It's not particularly deep, but I'm pretty deep. I think the other two, like, I mean, they had at least like 150 behind. I mean, yeah, you're right. It's pretty much on every flop. You're praying not to see an ace, because now that you've raised here, I mean, it does put you in a weird spot. There's no ace, and we get it all in. And I think he hits top pair or something, and my kings are good. But that was a pretty massive hand for those stakes at least. So good to see. Whereas pocket kings just murdered me the entire Vegas trip, I'm happy to win any pot with pocket kings right now. And so that was outside of that, I ran really good at the beginning. Just flopped some sets, flopped a straight, and then I was kind of whittling back down when you left, and I think that pocket kings happened like after you busted out like the second bullet, and that got me back pretty deal, and then I kind of whittled down a little bit and just cashed out after that. So it was I wanted to kind of cash out earlier, but it was one of those I knew I was going to break the game, and I was kind of the big winner at the game, so I hated to be the one to kind of break it. But it was a pretty good run there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Always happy to hear about you winning and me losing.
You and me both. Definitely goes both ways.
I guess that was it for that session for you.
Yeah, that was it for that session. It was just one of those really good sessions that for the most part ran smoothly with little areas of card deadness. But over the long haul, this was just something that was not in a lot of weird spots because I just flopped really well.
All right. Well, I'll get into my doghouse session then, I guess. So I go to doghouse. I have to wait oddly they only had one table going, which is really weird. I didn't check Atlas because lately they had like 3 tables going every time I've gone.
Okay.
One table going. I have to wait almost an hour.
Oh God, that's horrible.
Yeah, that's not great. Finally, they start a shorthanded table up. We're 3 or 4 handed. I get into this spot. I get into basically the same spot over 3 times in a row, to where I'm like, oh, I think this guy has a single, diamond when there's 3 diamonds out there drawing to a 4th diamond.
Okay.
Bricks out. I'm like, he bets. I call it. Oh, I thought you had, I would put you on a diamond. I have top pair. He's like, oh, that's what I had. I was like, okay, good. I show him. He's like, what? I hit my gutter on the river. It's like, cool. Lose that one. Basically have the same type of thing happen again, where I flop top pair, he flops middle pair, rivers 2 pair, stuff like that. Kind of happened back to back times. Not great to lose 2 or 3 $60 pots coming off of a $500 stack.
Yeah, it definitely kind of hamstrings you what you can do going forward, right? Unless you're adding on.
Yeah, hamstrings you a bunch of ways. You can't buy much. Yeah, I mean, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
So then we finally get moved to the main game, right?
Okay.
So this is nice. A little bit deeper stack game. Oddly, the action was worse there, but it's kind of not the point. So I'm playing. I get ace king one time, or early in the session. I raise pre-flop pretty big, like $20 get called both ways. Completely brick. It goes check, check. I turn a flush draw to go with it. 'Cause I had ace, king of clubs.
So you just check the ace king?
Yes.
You check behind them? Okay.
I was out of position, so I let out with a check.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Yep. I turn a flush draw. I bet like pot. So it was like $60.
Okay, I like this.
But it was kind of like a straightening card because the flop was like 9-7-6, and then like the turn was 7-6. It was like not a jack. It might have been like a 4 or something, but I was like, that's not the best card for me. It's gonna be hard to rep as the pre-flop raiser for sure.
Right.
But I did back. I did turn the clubs. Both called, so I was like, well, I guess I'm done here.
Very weird to have both call after both checking the flop. I mean, that's just kind of strange, but okay.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then on the river, I brick. I'm just like, wow. I mean, am I just... Obviously, they're going to call. I mean, how am I going to bluff through 2 people is kind of what I was thinking. Unless I'm going to just bet a ton of money and hope that we're on the same draw, I guess. I check it. Other guy checks. He had like second pair, and the other guy had nothing. I was like, wow, that's great.
I mean, I still like to give up on the river. It's once you bet, because you said you bet almost pot on the turn.
Yeah, I did.
So, I mean, once you bet that much and you get called both ways, I feel like regardless of if you would have gotten it through on this river, I mean, betting a gigantic bet on the turn and getting called 2 ways, unless you actually hit your hand, I think getting folds there is going to be very difficult.
Well, that hand was noteworthy. This hand was pretty noteworthy for me as well. Same suit, way different cards, though. I had 4-5 of clubs.
Okay.
Table super limp happy. I'm in the small blind, which in hindsight, I don't like this move out of the small and the big blind. When I was reflecting on it, mainly because you get stuck in this exact situation. But so I decided I was going to squeeze the limpers and make it 20.
Yeah, I'm not
like I said, yeah.
Well, I don't think it's a bad move. The problem being is everybody's going to call, and you're just stuck playing a pretty big pot with kind of a shitty hand.
Yeah, well, only 2 called at least.
Well, that's good. I mean, I like that you got some dead money in there. I mean,
I flop a gutter, so it comes. I have 4-5. It comes 7-8. It was like 7-8. Trying to think of the other card. It might have been a deuce. It was all low cards, and I was like, well, this isn't the worst, but. And I had a backdoor flush draw, so I did check it.
I think I like the check. I think normally it's a bet for me, but problem being is when they limp and you squeeze. Well, 7-8. I mean, obviously they don't have the king queen. They don't have aces kings. I mean, like a lot of the Broadway cards, they would have just raised with. So 7-8 seems like it's kind of in that, like it just hits the range a lot better.
Mm-hmm. It checks around.
Okay.
I turn a flush draw again. So like, wow, if there's ever a time to take a stab at it, it's turning the flush draw and having the gutter to go with it.
Agreed.
I bet pot again, which was like $65. One guy full. No, they both called.
This is just such a weird session. Go on. I'll give my thoughts on that after your.
I bricked the river. It's a queen. I was like, I mean, I can rep this, I guess. And then I was like, they're both just, I mean, what are the chances I get this through both people? I mean, almost nil.
Yeah, agreed.
So I check. Other guy checks. The guy to my right shows an pocket 6s. I muck. The other guy mucks.
Oh, man. I don't...
But here's the killer. Me and the other guy were still pretty deep. The guy with the pocket sixes might have had $50 behind after calling the pot size bet on the turn.
It is just so weird. So, I mean, in poker, one of the first things you learn is if your hand is, you have to have a stronger hand to call than you do to bet, correct?
Yes.
So, I mean, the theory behind this is if you bet, I mean, you can win the pot two ways. You can fold or you can have the best hand. If you call, there's only one way to win. You have to have the best hand. How you can have pocket sixes, check the flop after the pre-flop razor checks, but then call the turn with it is just kind of weird to me. How, especially like a pot-sized bet.
It was a big bet.
I mean, like whatever. I guess I can see like a call there. I mean, when you check that flop, I guess you don't have a lot of, I mean, I feel like you're probably betting a lot of aces, kings, queens, and stuff like that. But I just don't know if you're going to call there. It seems like you would bet the flop. Because, I don't know. It seems like just such a weird, it is so weird to have people check behind you on these flops and then call really big bets on the turn. I mean, I guess it just goes to show the game's really good. I mean, that you're getting just an insane amount of value out of these hands when you do hit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but big when.
Yeah.
When and if.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that, I mean, you do have to hit, though, because if they're not coming off these pots, you're just not going to be able to bluff them when they're calling down this light. But, like I say, I mean, you are getting a ton of value when you do hit because they're calling with third and fourth pair.
Yeah, I mean, so that was basically my hold'em. Oh, wow, I forgot about this hand. It was a double board bomb pot, so I'll kind of skim over it. I'll give you the general details. But I ended up with a suited king and suited, it was like jack. So, like double suited. So, to the king, to the jack, right?
Okay.
I flopped a flush draw on one board and basically nothing on the other board. I turned the nuts with the ace of spades hitting, so I had the king high flush.
Nut flush.
Some guy bet like 110 for pot. I then repot it all in. He calls. I had actually turned another flush draw on the other board and drilled it on the river to scoop.
For two flushes.
Yeah.
Oh, God. What'd he end up having on that other board?
A straight and two pair.
Oh, he had a straight and two. Ooh, man. That's kind of cooler for him.
It's definitely cooler.
I mean, that's, that's a pretty, like, heads up, that's a pretty strong hand.
So he had Broadway straight and ace jack for two pair.
Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
a tough day for him.
Yeah, it seemed that way. So that was noteworthy. And then I got in this weird PLO hand, which I guess to say I got into it is kind of light, but I was somewhat involved. I have ace, king, jack, 8 double suited. The ace and the king are of spades. The jack and the 8 are of hearts.
Okay.
Everyone calls the $6 or whatever, and then someone in late position makes it 50. And I'm about $700 deep, $700 behind.
Okay.
I'm like, I think I can call 50 here. What do you think?
Yes, I like the call of 50. I think this is a hand that plays pretty well multi-way. It's got some nuttiness to it. I like the call of 50 here.
But before it even gets to me, some guy shoves all in for like 210.
Oh, wait. I think you told me about this earlier, and I think I misheard you. So you didn't end up calling the 50. I thought the 200 was after you called the 50.
No.
Oh, okay. Like I misheard you when we were talking about this earlier. Okay. He makes it 200, and what do you do?
Just get annoyed and fold.
100%. I love this. I love how you played this. 200 is just too much, I think, regarding y'all stack sizes to get this in. Your Ace King Jack 8, it's a very good hand, but you're a pretty big dog to Aces Kings, which is normally what this is going to be.
Right, that's something we got to kind of preface it with is in the games we play when action like this happens, it's always aces, kings, stuff like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess every now and then you might see like a rundown
yeah.
or something. But that being said, even a rundown has you in a horrible spot if they also have like ace, queen, jack 10 or so. Well, I guess your ace king would go good right there. But yeah, this is just not a great spot for this hand.
So I fold, but then the guy to my left who called 6 flat calls the 210.
Okay.
It goes back to the pre-flop razor. He then goes all in for, it must have been like $800 or $900 total. The other guy calls.
God dang.
Yeah. It's dry aces versus dry queens versus nothing from the other guy. Well, yeah, they weren't suited because he had the ace of hearts. But
Queens is a god-awful hand to be calling with here. I mean, this is how you know this PLO game is just freaking off the charts. I mean, you'd be better off making this call with like 10, 9, 8, 7 double suited. Because, I mean, if they have aces or kings, you are drawing so goddamn slim.
Yep. Well, the cards ran out to where any flush was good if you had the hearts, which I had the jack high flush, but you know, being results oriented slightly.
Yeah.
So aces hold.
Yeah, that's a. But I mean, like, this is a really good. I mean, I thought you had the 50 and folded, and I thought that was a really good move earlier. But you know, some of the hands that you don't play are like, you would have scooped a gigantic pot here, but really, in all honesty, if you call 200 here, you're never calling the 900. So you know, saving yourself $200 is huge in the long run. So it was good, very well played, I thought, on your part. And I mean, again, I might have to jump into more PLO here because I mean that is such a bad call for PLO.
Yeah, maybe my PLO, what's it called? That PLO Venom or whatever would have taken over, and I could have called the 900 and had a triple up. That would have been nice.
That would have been nice.
Up. Yeah.
I mean, in the long run, you're now a losing player, but in that night, it would have been really nice.
Right, and then I'll call myself a PLO player.
No gamble, no future.
Yeah, that was basically it for me. I ended up losing slightly on the night, which was slightly annoying. But yeah, I mean, the game ended early. I guess, you know, people have to go home at some point. So we ended up, once the big stacks left, and it was just me and like 4 other people, like they all had maybe like $200. I was like, wow.
Yeah. That's like I say, it sounds like you played well, and it just were not getting cards in your. I mean, I liked kind of all your moves and how you played. It's just like I say. I mean, I think, but like recognizing the game. Like I think this is something I need to work on is recognizing the game I'm in, and when it's nittier, maybe bluffing more, and when it's call happy, just going for maybe thinner value than I might be usually going for.
Right. No, absolutely. I guess who was it? We watched a vlogger this weekend. I think it was Boski who said this about being that if you play super tight and nitty, nobody at our stakes are going to notice, and you're still going to get action. Who was that? Do you remember?
Oh, I don't know who said that, but I mean, it's very, very true.
That they only care about their
No,
particular
you know
hand?
what? It was Ben Deitch. Because it
okay.
was a question about how like he plays kind of nitty. And he's like, when people show up, they just show up to play their cards in their hands.
That's right. I mean, that's kind of that. What you just said made me think of that.
Yeah, and that really is true. People are they're just playing their cards and what they think, how that relates to the flop. I mean, like I say, I've played. I mean, I would say I played like tighter than average.
For sure, I would say that.
And I tell you what, it's never have trouble getting action.
Yeah.
I mean, like I do knowing you, I have learned to bluff a little bit more, and I do throw that in there. But for the most part, it's I mean, 90% of the time I have it, and I tell you what, I get called 75% of the time, it seems like.
by just random stuff, really.
Yeah, I mean, we're not even talking about like top pair or anything. It is just, nope, he ain't gonna be. I mean, people hate to be bluffed, so it seems like it just they want to, they are way more likely to call. So,
oh, I had an interesting hand. Like, you know how we always talk about we break these hands down, flop top pair, bet top pair, get value. That's your theory on it.
yeah.
So I have king 9 of diamonds in the big. The flop comes king high. It's like 3 ways. And I was like, well, I'm just going to do what Clint says and just try this out.
Mm-hmm.
Turn was like an 8. No diamond for me. But I just bet it all 3 streets. I bet relatively big on the turn and then bet same bet on the river.
Okay.
Trying to squeak out some value.
I think I like 2 streets with this hand, but okay, we'll go with it.
Yeah, he turned. He had king 8 and turned the 8.
Oh God, how
I
horrible!
was like, oh man. I got a good hand for you. I have an interesting hand for you, actually. Hold on, before we close this thing out. This might have been my better hand of the night. Aside from that one, I have Queen Jack offsuit in the small blind. It was not a very big raise. Maybe it was an under the gun raise, and I flatted the 6, and we see this flop multi-way.
This is fine. There's going to be a lot of people who, like, the big thing on small blind now is I think it's 3 better fold. But I think in the games we play where people are playing just way too loose, there's a lot of hands I want to see here that I don't really care to 3-bet. So I kind of like this.
Yeah, I go, instead of the 3 better fold, I go with the call and pray method. So the flop comes all diamonds, but it's king, queen, like 7, all diamonds. I have the jack of diamonds.
Is it king and queen of diamonds?
All
yeah,
diamonds.
all diamonds. Yeah, so I
so.
should be able to figure that one out. It's
guy bets pretty. First it checks through. Then the guy bets pretty big here. And I was like, well, he could just be doing this with the dry ace of diamonds. So I call.
I definitely like this call, especially after it checks through on the flop. Because you're almost never drawing dead here. If they have a flush you have outs to a bigger flush. Or if they have a king, you have outs. Or if they're on a flush draw, your queen is already good. I really like this call.
The river's a brick. And I think he's going to fire because he had already fired really big on the turn.
Right.
He must have bet the flop because I remember I had to withstand 2 streets. I think it was a very small bet on the flop, though, and then it was heads up, and then he bet gigantic on the turn.
Okay.
And then on the river, he just gave up, and I was like, oh, I love that. So I checked, and then he only had ace high with the ace of diamonds.
Yeah, that's very well played. I like your call on the flop and turn. I mean, if he fires on the river, it gets pretty goddamn scary.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what. I mean, you're looking at only a 3-barrel bluff that you're beating with a single ace of diamonds. I think if he fires, you actually probably have to fold here, right?
Trust me, I was thinking of that too.
Yeah, it was, great. Yeah, that was very well played, and luckily he did not find that 3rd barrel, because that would have put you in a god-awful spot.
Yeah, that was an interesting hand that I played. But other than that, that pretty much concludes it for me. Are you going to be playing much poker this week? I guess you just found out, no, right? You're going to work?
Yeah, I was planning on playing a little bit tomorrow. Just got a message about 3 minutes before we started this podcast that I am working tomorrow. I will probably try to play Thursday or Friday. I'm not sure, and then I need to get some poker in this week. So I have to kind of wait and see. What are your plans as far as poker this week?
I'm working every day, so it's a disaster. So you're gonna have to carry the gauntlet.
God, you're working. God, you are working every single night after this, aren't you?
Yes.
Well, hopefully you're not too tired, because we need you to play on next Monday for some content. I'll try to, we're probably maybe tomorrow after work or Thursday or Friday, but I really need to put a focus in on getting more poker hours in, just in general. I have been slacking off. I have had a ton on my plate, so, I mean, it is what it is, but definitely time to get back on the grind a little bit.
All right, absolutely. Happy to hear the plate has been cleared. I guess this will conclude the Texas Poker Podcast. We'll talk to you next week.
That was the Texas Poker Podcast. Go ahead and rack up, add time, and we'll see you next week.